Our first topic of the day is brought to us by Mazda. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it, because these moments do more than win. They push what's possible, reminding us to go that extra yard, shift into that extra gear, and keep the game moving forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like that, there's more to every highlight. There's more to every Mazda. Mazda, move and be moved. Guys, I've been holding on to this topic for a while. I thought we could have done it a couple weeks ago, but there was so much drama going on with the Browns. I said, let's wait for the bye week. We'll have a full, essentially half season. Now with the 17 games, you don't really get that 50-point way of the season. So it's as close as we can get to 50%. Dustin, I'm going to start with you on this one. When you look at the overall Browns roster, and you look at the Browns coaching staff, and you look at the dilemma that they are currently sitting in at 2-6, when you have to identify the biggest problem with the Browns right now, would you say it's more of a coaching issue or more of a lack of talent on the roster issue?
Well, there's talent on the roster. There's no doubt that there's some talent on this football team, but there's just not enough at the key positions to sustain winning, frankly. They've got good players on defense. They've got one of the best defensive players we've ever seen. But on the offensive side of the ball, they just don't have enough horses to hold up to sustain those wins. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have receivers. And then at the end of the day, I would say the coaching staff certainly deserves a lot of blame, because you continue to not be able to score more than 13 points a game.
Scheme it up.
And it's not just with Dylan Gabriel. It's been every quarterback essentially going back several years. Right.
If you had to say like a percentage-wise, like 30% of it's Stefanski, 70% of his lack of talent, how would you split that pie?
Man, it's probably impossible to really put a number on it, but it's at least 50-50. I mean, and at this point, I'd probably say at this point, because the coaches have had a lot of time, like they've had 6 years, right? They've been to 6 years.
This is the sixth year.
Yeah.
6 years, guys.
And they're what, 9? Yeah, Stefanski's 8 or 9 games under 500.
We're on a 12-game road losing streak.
Where the defense has played poorly.
Yes.
On the road too.
Yeah. I mean, I would say at this point, I'd probably put more onus on the coaching staff.
So 64.
Sure.
Okay. G, where are you?
You want a percentage?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it allows us to get our minds around, because obviously it's a shared problem. It's not all Stefanski or all lack of talent.
I'm gonna go with 65-35.
Coach.
The reason I'm gonna go 65-35 with the coaches is simply because if you take a look at the pillars of what organizations built their franchises around, the first thing they look at is go get an elite pass rusher. You have the best one in the league. Second thing they look to do is say, hey, okay, well, now we got a pass rusher. Let's pair that with somebody in the back end.
But what about the quarterback? Isn't quarterback first usually?
Well, I'm going to get to the quarterback. So,
okay.
But here's, the top 3 positions in football. Usually people say you got quarterback, you got defensive lineman, somebody who can get to quarterback. Then you got receiver, and then somebody that can stop receivers and cornerbacks, and then obviously offensive line. If you look at the talent that they have an elite corner. They got elite, the best defensive player in the league. They got good linebackers. They got a solid defense in positions and parts. However, they are lacking a quarterback. They're lacking any sort of explosive wide receiver. And they're lacking offensive linemen of any sort that do anything. So when you got those sort of deficiencies, I'm like, okay. But we have seen in different places where you've had players here. Baker's done his best football. This is the greatest hits. Baker's playing better than he's ever played. You had a guy in Deshaun Watson who, by the way, we look at it now, but Deshaun Watson, when they traded for him, was universally known as a top 5, at worst, top 10 quarterback. That didn't work. Joe Flacco was here. You said Joe Flacco gave you a great opportunity, right? He leaves here, he throws for 350 10 days later with no training camp, no OTAs, no nothing. So to me, yes, you do have a lack of players, but that comes from your organization not being able to identify and put those players in a good position. Jerry Judy's fallen off a cliff. Tyva sat here and told us, hey, maybe put him in a slot, why don't you? He's on the outside, let's figure some stuff out. So To me, and after watching the film countless games, I just don't think he's a very creative play caller. I would say let Tommy Reese get an opportunity to see what we can do. But to me, I would go 65-35. I put it on the coach, and then the player aspect at 35%.
Jay?
I'm pretty much in line with you guys. I think that I tend to usually say it's Jimmy's and Joe's. That's always the philosophy I've always looked at. It's so hard to win with bad players. It is so hard to win with bad players. But to your point, G, you've got the best defensive player in the game. And you've got a top 4, depending on the year. He's had some ups and downs. Mm-hmm. But I think top 3 is a little bit of a stretch, but you could go that far if you wanted with
top
Denzel
5.
Ward. Definitely top 5 corner.
Yeah, top 5.
Definitely. So to me, if you have someone who puts elite pressure on the quarterback, that means he's got to get rid of it quickly. If you've got an elite corner, these passes should all be short passes. So you've got 2 of the critical pieces to have an elite defense. At times it's a boondoggle. At times they've looked elite.
The word of the day.
but they're not elite because you have to go on their body of work, not their best performance. If a dude goes out and rolls a 300, but in the other 2 games he throws a 75, his average is 150.
Yeah.
And so their bad performances pulls their regression back to average, middle of the pack. That's what I think the defense is, because they're elite at home and they're not good on the road. But I say that to say, I think that's got to be coaching somehow, some way. When you have 2 elite chips on the defense and some other emerging talent, by the way, you should be very good. Now, this is where it gets tricky for me because it's an offensive league still. You have to score points to win, and they cannot. We'll never see it, but here's what I would love to know. If Andy Reid was the coach of the Browns from July 1st of this year, what would their points per game look like?
More.
Undoubtedly more. But would it be nominally more? Would it be a touchdown a game more? Which, by the way, even at a touchdown a game more, which is just about a 50% production increase, that's still not good enough. It's just not. So at some point, you're going to be punished by your lack of talent. And when you look at the offense, I said this Monday, I've said this really going back to training camp, it is an egregious lack of talent. It's not just like, wow, squint hard, maybe you can see. I don't even know if we really know what Judkins is. We've seen flashes for sure. Mm-hmm. But again, if you bowl a 300 and you bowl 275s, you're a 150 bowler. He's looked like a 300 bowler in moments, and he's looked like a 75 bowler in other moments. Mm-hmm. I do think there's something there. I do think there's something there with Fannin. And because of that, I think Andy Reid could say, wow, you give me a tight end and a running back? Yeah, I'll give you points. And that's where I really ding Stefanski. He has schemed up nothing. I watch every week thinking, okay, we're going to see something special this week. We saw the Wildcat against Miami, that it worked. We later found out that was only put in because of the weather. It wasn't because they need to be creative and find new ways to score at the goal line.
Yeah.
That was a little disappointing. So for me, I think I could easily get to 65-35 Stefanski and lack of talent. But I do want to point out our lack of talent on the offense. This might be the worst. I don't even think, are they ranked 32nd in yards or points?
Steve, take 13 again.
They're 30th
You can
in
see
points.
they're 30th in points. They're 30th in yards,
God,
pass yards.
to
They're
think
29th
there's
in
two
rush
offenses
yards.
Worse than this is kind of gross.
Yeah.
But
Who's the
it's
other
bad.
offenses? The
I
Titans.
would,
Tennessee.
I would say Tennessee and maybe the Jets, but the Jets had a big
No,
output.
just scored like 40.
Yeah, they had
I
a
don't
big.
think so.
Maybe Jacksonville.
2 teams worse in points
No?
per game are
Oakland? Or
Vegas and Tennessee.
Vegas.
Okay, Vegas and Tennessee. It's so it's I don't think it's historically bad, but by my anecdotal Browns viewing, this is the worst I've ever seen.
You know, I got to say, I am stunned that you all blame the coach more than the talent. I'm shocked. I did not think I'd be alone on this, but to me, as much as I have beef with Kevin Stefanski and think it's time for him to go, to me it's very clearly a talent problem more than a coaching problem.
I know, but doesn't it sort of swing for you because there is talent on the defense?
I mean, there's some talent on the defense, and
Well,
the defense
there's 2 elite players over there.
okay, but 2 elite players is not enough. You got to have other good players. They have some, and the defense outside of this past week has played well. The defense has played good to great every game but one, which was this past week.
My thing is, Adam, when it comes to the coaching staff, it's like, okay, if you don't have talent, well, then the coaches know they don't have talent. So you have to do other things to actually manipulate a defense and put together a game plan to go out and score some points. And I always make this joke, but like Army and Navy score touchdowns. They don't have the talent.
An Army and Navy, you're not playing against NFL teams, so that's a big difference.
I understand. I'm just giving a little example to make the point, and I'm not even saying that they need, like Army and Navy, they win games. Like the Browns they can't even score a freaking touchdown.
I hear you. It's terrible, and there's no pass for the coach, but both are terrible. So we're it's
a bad combo.
It's a terrible combo.
Yeah,
but Jay, you specifically said Andy Reid, and to answer this question, I thought to myself, if I put Andy Reid on the Browns, how many more wins would they have? If I put Kevin Stefanski on the Chiefs, how fewer wins would they have? And it's just an opinion. There's obviously no way to know for sure.
You don't think it would be significant?
I do not think it would be significant. No.
In terms of wins.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah,
No.
I think the Browns might have 1 to 2 more wins.
You think they'd have 2 more wins?
I
with
know. I
Andy Reid as
said
coach?
1 to 2.
Yeah.
I think that he would have found a way.
I just don't
to
believe
beat
that.
Cincinnati, which I think now we know what Cincinnati is.
Look, the part that gets me is I watch every single game they have, right? And you watch every single film breakdown they have, and it's high school.
Yeah, but G. Bush, would you agree the Browns have the worst talent on offense in the entire league?
Yes.
Okay, so
but hold on. But here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
This is the thing that I always get.
Yeah.
Like Dustin said, it is malpractice if we are sitting here, right, and we're doing a show, right?
Yeah.
And the lighting is off and the microphones don't work, right? And people are complaining in the chat. And we sit here and we have a meeting after the show and we say, hey, what do you guys suggest? And we sit here and say nothing. We're like, dude, the microphones is trash and the lighting is horrible.
Yeah.
If you are in a position and you are the head coach and you are in the meetings and you are in the know, it is unacceptable to say, all right, I like my receivers. I like my talent. They've said they like their talent, bull.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't like when they say nothing in press conferences.
But no, they
but the
actively
reality
say they like
is
it.
the reality is the offensive talent on this roster is the worst in the league. I don't think there's any argument. If you
I know.
combine,
How are I haven't watched a lot of the Raiders, and I haven't watched a lot of the Saints.
I mean,
I can't imagine.
how could they be worse?
I can't imagine it's worse.
Who's in charge of going to the general manager saying, I need this for my team?
But that's not the question here.
Okay.
We're turning this into just killing Stefanski again, which we always do, and it's fine, and I want him out too. But the question specifically is, what's the bigger problem? Doesn't mean that the smaller problem is not also a problem.
What's your split if it's not 50-50?
I'd say 70-30 talent.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The talent's terrible on this team.
But listen, I could be talked into that because the offense is so bad.
I can't be talked into it because I watched the film and they run sit-downs and check-down routes.
So did Stefanski forget how to be a good coach?
I don't think I think Stefanski is a run-of-the-mill coach, and I think the Browns have bottom-tier talent.
The data doesn't point it out. The film work doesn't point it out. You can think that he's a run-of-the-mill coach, but when you sit here and watch every single play, and every single play looks like a high school game, and you're like, that route is not creative. Why are we running that on third down? Why are there 3 guys in one place on the football field?
Right.
Why are we only got 1 guy in the pattern? Why are we running the ball and guys aren't being blocked? It's like...
But I'm not arguing that he's not doing a bad job. He is doing a bad job.
I'm just saying.
I'm not trying to say he's not. I'm just saying the lack of talent. I don't think
you're not 100-0
No,
all players.
no.
I'm not 100-0 either.
I'm just saying that the Browns have never had less talent on their offense. Never.
Not in my lifetime.
Not in the
I've been watching
0-16
them
16 year
the
they had Josh Gordon, didn't they? Or am I making
No,
that up?
Josh. He was on the
year?
roster.
But remember,
2016.
wasn't he sitting out with suspensions?
Was Terrell Pryor here for that? Did he have like
I can't
1,000
remember
yards or
now. It's
something?
been so many years. But they had a few decent players on the offensive line. The Browns have nothing.
What they average
They
per
have a-
year in points per game when they were 0-16?
I'm sure it's more than
it's
we
like
have
right.
now.
No, it's like right around.
It's, I mean, it was
Almost
terrible.
almost
The
identical.
talent then was terrible also.
Yeah, it was bad.
But this is hideous. You don't have one, like, your best offensive lineman is retiring at the end of the year. Your best running back's a rookie who's banged up.
None of them are coming back. So it'd be one thing if you had one hole to plug on the line. You have 5. I mean, you could re-sign 2 of these guys.
Yeah.
I don't know that they will.
Yeah.
But even if you resign 2 of them, you have 3 gaping holes in your line. You have no wide receiver talent.
Right.
You have no quarterback. Like, we don't have enough draft picks to fix
You
this.
have 3 starters on the team, and that's being generous, including Jerry Jeudy, because hoping he could bounce back next year. That's it. You have Jeudy, Fannin, and Judkins. Those are your only starters on the entire. There's no other legitimate starters for next year on this entire offense.
Fannon's
And yes, there's talent on the defense, but there's also been good coaching on the defense. Jim Schwartz has done a good job.
I go back to it. You go back to 2016
Yeah.
when the Browns went 0 and something. I could have told you where they went 0 and something because they drafted Cody Kessler in the late rounds, who had the same skill set as Dylan Gabriel. He was a guy, they said it was smart. He had a below average arm, but he was going to be a guy that they really believed in. Hugh Jackson put him in. He was horrible. 3rd round pick, we talked about it yesterday, man. At the end of the day, you can't say it's talent, but Kevin Stefanski could have picked any quarterback in that draft. He could have had him.
Here's how
That's who he chose.
Now maybe
Except
this
Cam Ward.
maybe this is not fair, but here's how I get you all to admit I'm right.
You might.
100%.
You might.
Would you rather trade coaches or rosters with the Chiefs right now?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I mean, that's like a loaded
That's
question.
a very you know what it is? It's an interesting way of coming at this question because when you put it that way, that's easy.
But
It's easy.
Easy.
But you can't say that because here's the reason.
Yeah.
It's not. I keep going back to this, and I'm wanting to understand how you absolve them of this. The Chiefs actively chose the people. Andy Reid chose the people.
Yeah, but
he
now,
wanted.
like Bull said, though, that's going back to how the cake was made.
Yeah.
Not what the cake
Nobody's
tastes like.
saying
So
Kevin
you're
Stefanski-
right, G. You're right that the construction of this roster is a fireable
And
effect.
Kevin Stefanski is
And you're
partly
right
to
about
blame for the lack of talent.
Yes, he is. Because they're all matched out.
If I was making an argument that Kevin Stefanski should keep his job, then what you're saying is fine. I'm not making that argument.
Right.
I'm just saying if I had to decide what's the bigger issue, I'd say the talent because I'd much rather have the Chiefs roster than the Chiefs coach.
But
Yeah, I would too.
And I would say that about any good team in the NFL.
Yeah, because it is the players.
Yes.
It's the Jimmys and the Joes.
they have
that's-
a bigger impact.
But that's
You
obvious.
flip me, Bull.
Like that's obvious.
Yes.
Like
You flipped me.
I mean,
that was a great way of putting it.
I mean, actually, to be truthful, the only way he flipped you is because they have Patrick Mahomes.
yeah, but that's what.
That's
a big part of it.
That's the
that's
talent.
of course.
So let's let's pick a different.
Rice,
Let's pick a
Worthy.
mid-level team. Pick,
What'd you say, Mike? I didn't hear you.
Yeah,
Instead
let's
of
pick a
picking the
different
Chiefs,
team.
who have the best quarterback in football.
Okay, let's
Just-
pick a
just
team
for
with a
the sake of
good
this-
quarterback, not a great
Buffalo
quarterback.
Bills.
Eagles.
Oh, never mind. Sorry.
Give me their players.
But their
Denver?
rosters.
I mean, they're
elite.
loaded.
The rest of their rosters.
Yeah, but
They're loaded.
said pick a different team.
What
I picked a
about
different
Denver?
team.
What about Denver?
Denver.
Give me the Browns roster.
Yeah, I'd take Denver's roster. That's not even close.
Give me the Browns
Yeah,
roster.
no, give me Denver's roster.
Denver's got a great defense also, just as good, if not better than the Browns.
Did we watch the Cowboys game on Sunday? Like
Yeah,
the,
what are you
the
talking
Broncos
about?
Cowboys. I mean, the Broncos,
Broncos
are
won.
really good. No, I know, but the Broncos
Yeah.
are good.
Oh, so you're agreeing with
Yes!
me?
Yeah, they're very good. Hey, give me the Denver Broncos players. Give me Bo Nix. I mean, it's a quarterback league.
Listen, it's close. It's close.
Wow,
but,
really? You would
yeah,
wait a minute.
It's close.
I got to get this right in my mind. You would take right now, if someone said to you, "Gee, we can take all 53 and send them to Denver."
Garrett, think about this hard before you say
Yeah,
it.
think about this
I
hard.
know you're
'cause
down
this
on
is a-
Stefanski. I
This,
get it.
this is one of those.
No, it's not.
You talk about legacy leaving.
No, what do you mean? What are you talking
will
about?
one day go down as saying, "Yeah, I like the Browns players more than I like the Broncos players." This was a team that made the playoffs a year ago. Sean Payton has had some questionable years after his great year in New Orleans.
Oh my goodness! Listen, these guys. Are you serious?
Am I serious?
All right. Here
All right,
you go.
the floor is-
So
the
here's
floor is
how-
yours, buddy.
I'll go ahead and explain it. I got Quinshon Judkins. I think that he's better than anybody that they have on in terms of their backs.
I don't know that.
Okay, even if we give you that, fine, that's one spot.
I'll give you that.
If you look at the top 5 players, if you say, give me the top 5 players for the Broncos and the Browns, I got the top 3.
No, I'm not saying top. I'm saying all 53.
So I'm just giving
Wait,
you.
How do you get the top 3?
Listen.
Who are the top 3?
Listen, right now, I take Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward over anybody they got over there.
Patrick
Surtain.
Surtain.
I got
NFL defensive player of the year.
I got Patrick Surtain. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But at least I got 2 out of the 3 top.
But even if we're not even going to say that they're a wash, Surtain is better than
I got Quinshon Judkins. That's another one.
Again, I just don't know what he is. He
They've
was
got
9
Cortland
carries.
Sutton.
Okay.
He's way better than any skilled
Any
position player in the
receiver.
Broncos.
So you got Cortland Sutton. That's cool. I like them.
Yeah.
When you go.
How about offensive line?
Listen.
The game's won in the trenches.
Hey,
you know that.
We literally gave the Browns our hand-me-down receiver, and he sucks.
Yes,
Listen,
you're right. And by we, he's obviously a Broncos fan.
The Broncos, if you looking at
They're top 10 in offense and 5th in defense.
so watch this. But so hold on, ain't no G. It's who they got to coach. Who
It doesn't.
hold on.
Yeah.
We
To me,
talk
the
about
coaches are almost a wash.
No. How the coaches is a wash? Sean Payton took a rookie, put him in, he was cooking.
I know he did, but Sean Payton's also had some. How did Sean Payton look with Russell Wilson?
Sean Payton had the heart to do what Kevin Stefanski couldn't do.
What,
you know what he did?
No.
You know what he did? They traded for Russell Wilson, and you know what he did? He took the cap hit and said, "Get up out of here."
Well, now listen, owner and no, that was not a coach's decision. Their owner said, "Do it."
Hold on.
Our owner said, "Hell no."
Watch this. Hold on. They got rid of him. They took the cap hit. They won in the draft and drafted Bo Nix.
Right.
Nobody thought Bo Nix was going to cook. They took him. They played him the first year, and guess what happened? They made the playoffs.
Yeah, but gee, their owner gave him permission to do that.
But hold on.
None of this has to do with the fact that you're arguing you rather have the coach than the talent. The Broncos are way more talented.
What I'm saying to you is the talent differentiation is not that crazy between the two teams.
Yes, it is.
The difference between the Broncos and what the Browns are is squarely right on that sideline. When you look at what you mean? Come on. What the Browns drafted Dylan Gabriel. They took the wrong Oregon quarterback.
So if Sean Payton's our head coach right now, our record is what?
Sean Payton has thrown for millions of yards everywhere. With Drew Brees, and he was a. What are you talking about, Jay?
I asked you a question.
He's a Super Bowl winning coach.
If Sean Payton was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns right now, our record would be what?
They'd have at least 1 or 2 more wins. At least. That puts you at 4 wins.
Kevin Stefanski had all of the Broncos players to coach here in Cleveland, our record would be what?
About the same.
Same as it is now?
He'd be throwing check down routes today.
Come on, G. You're letting your hatred for Stefanski, which I get,
bro. I'm
cloud you. I think.
Whoa. Listen. It ain't no hatred for Stefanski.
Internet lives forever.
No. There ain't no hatred for Stefanski. You go back and you look at what the body of work he's put on the football field. You guys rub his shoulders all week and say, "Oh, well, it's not that bad. Like, we killed him yesterday, so let's come on today."
No, that's baloney. That's an unfair accusation.
What do you mean?
That's an unfair accusation.
Bro, I'm sitting here telling you.
We all want him fired. I want him fired.
What I'm saying
to you, what you're saying is unfair.
No, it's not. He's been the worst offense the last 2 years.
Agreed.
So who are you putting ahead of him?
I'd rather have the talent, the players, than the coach. That's more important.
So here's what we're gonna say. I'm gonna ask you really quickly. Who has Kevin Stefanski bowled with ever?
Well, I watched him take 2 different teams.
I asked individuals
to the playoffs in 6 years.
But you're changing the question.
I watched that.
I just asked you a simple question.
That.
No, actually, he took a team and he didn't win a playoff game. He was at home.
No, I didn't say. Now you put words in my mouth. I said he took 2 different teams.
Okay.
To the playoffs. Factually correct.
He took 2 different teams to the playoffs.
I'm not giving him that playoff win. He wasn't even there.
I'm asking you.
I don't know what you're arguing about.
I'm asking you where the development is.
I think what's happened here is, and I get it, sometimes you just make a statement and then you're like, oh God, there's no way to get out of that.
I'm doubling, tripling down. I would take the Browns roster is not that different and not that crazy. I got the best defensive player in the world. What are you talking about?
Well, actually, the best defensive player in the world right now, according to the NFL.
It is not. Stop.
Wait,
Jay,
who won
stop.
MVP?
It's Miles Garrett.
Stop.
It's
Stop.
Miles
Right
Garrett.
now, this year it is.
Stop. Jay,
But
come
last year,
on, Jay.
so we're splitting hairs.
Jay,
We
come
got
on.
the last two
Come on.
defensive MVPs.
It doesn't matter.
Miles Garrett's better than
It's
Surtain.
one
Of
player,
course
though,
he
G.
is.
It's
I
one
mean,
player.
I'm
not arguing with that. Listen,
Yeah, it's not a trade one for one. It's
here's the thing.
53 for 53.
I would trade, and again, for the 18th time, I'll say I want Kevin Stefanski out of here. But I would trade the Browns roster, if I had to choose, trade their roster for any other team's roster or trade the coach for any other team's coach. I would either trade the roster or make no trade at all. There's no team where I'd rather trade for the coach because the other bad teams, the
with
coaches
this
think
roster,
they're too.
what are you going to do with
No,
it?
it's not that. It's
Look,
just
I mean,
that.
the reality is they're both really bad.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
bad talent
Yes.
and bad coaching.
Yes.
Like, what are we
Yes.
arguing over?
Yes.
Like, so we're splitting hairs, guys.
I think that-
and we're
I
not,
think what we-
and,
I think what
and
we
we're
kind
all
of
we're all
fell
sort of
into-
looking silly here. They're
What we
so
fell
bad.
Into, what we fell into was the way Bull phrased.
Yeah, I knew that was going to make it.
Well, when you put it that way, Bull,
Yeah.
it's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Because it might be close for you. I would have to think about that for 1/10 of a second. I'd be afraid if I thought about it any longer, Denver would say, no way. Do you think right now Denver's GM would call Cleveland and say, I've been looking at your team. Yeah. I got a lot of possibilities with that roster.
Yeah.
We're going to do an unprecedented roster swap. You cool?
Is there any team where you'd rather switch coaches than rosters with the Browns?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Coaches?
I mean, I would love to have Andy Reid.
Of course.
I would love to have Andy Reid.
Of course.
But
there's a lot of coaches I'd rather have.
Here's the
but not
question.
at the
You know what
expense
the
of
question
getting their
is?
team.
Would you take any jockey and put him on any horse and expect him to ride him to the victory? No.
Right.
The horse carries the jockey,
but
and the
ultimately,
team
yes.
carries the coach.
but that's
And the coach makes it better or worse.
Of course he does. But you know where the coach makes a difference? In the last two games of the season.
No.
When every little decision matters.
No, the coach makes it. Here's this is wild because you're sitting here trying to act like the dude that's sitting on the sidelines, drawing the plays, calling the plays, making evaluations on who should play, is not somehow culpable.
Nobody's
I would
saying
give you.
that.
I would agree with you if this were true. What I'm about to say. If I had never seen that coach draw plays and score points and win games, I would be with you. If you took those two playoff seasons out of his body of work, I would be with you. Because here's the question I would be asking. Can he do it? I don't think he can do it. I've never seen him do it. Here's what gives me pause about it. I've seen him with my own eyes do it. We sat here, G, and you sang his praises too, brother. When they made the playoffs.
Listen, here's what I'm going to tell you.
You were singing his praises.
And guess what? We came back in here. See, sometimes y'all got to understand, life isn't static. You don't just stay in one spot.
Of course you don't.
The coaches say all the time, you're either getting better or you're getting worse.
Correct.
And Stefanski's gotten worse.
So here's
Definitely.
the thing. And when he went to the
Definitively.
playoffs, Jay, the sound bites tell it all. What did we forget? Did DeMeco Ryans tell his player, stand right there. I'm going to tell you where he's going to throw the football. Right there. Stand right there. And he's going to throw it to you.
Yes.
Pick six.
And they lost.
And guess what? Here's what I'm saying to you. The fact that they know that, and the coaches, I didn't say it. Listen to what they're saying.
But
DeMeco Ryans, Mike Vrabel laughed at that man
did
last
the
week.
16 games or 17 games in the regular season that mattered to get them to the playoffs, those don't count?
You've been figured out.
It took 17 games?
You've been figured out. You take a look at what he did in the beginning of his
It
career.
worked. I've seen it work for 2 seasons.
What are they in their last 30 games? What is it? Can we get the?
I think they're 5-25.
So
Something like that.
You play 30 games. You're 5-25, but
Yeah.
we're still talking about what he did 4
Have
years
we
ago.
not on this show talked about how absolutely awful the offensive line is?
Sure.
Have we not on this show talked about how inexcusable it is that this team doesn't have a wide receiver?
Sure.
He had 2 receptions for 31 yards by wide receivers
Sure.
on Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay, so gee, 2 things can be true at once.
Yes.
And they are.
65-35.
The team is bad and the coach is bad.
Okay.
But when you put it in the terms that Bull put it, I don't change my mind very often. But
Don't.
Bull, that is a powerful argument. I do think that I think Adam's right. I think you are kind of caught up in the moment, and I know you want Stefanski out of here.
No,
I get that. We all do.
This doesn't excuse Stefanski's bad coaching.
No, it's not. But to say that you would take Cleveland's talent with Sean Payton is
hold on.
Is wild work.
No, hold on. How is it wild work for me to say that Sean Payton has been more of an accomplished coach in this league?
But that's not what we're
that's not what we're arguing.
Okay.
I argue that.
So how is it crazy when 4 or 5 weeks ago you guys are talking about the Cleveland Browns having the best defense of all time? By the way, By the way, in 2023, why we want to talk about the rosters? If you want to go to 2023, people in this show said it was a top 5 defense of all time.
And then we were wrong.
Okay, well, here's the thing.
And we said we were wrong.
So here's the thing. Things change over time, then, what you're saying.
Sure, they change.
So I can say, you know what? Stefanski was a good coach at one point in time, but you get new information, Jay.
Of course you do.
You're arguing
the new information on
as
the
if
Browns
we're
team.
saying I'm saying the Broncos have better talent than the Browns, and you're arguing as if I'm saying Kevin Stefanski is a good coach.
Here's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I am saying, to me, the talent differentiation is not as big as
here's what G. Bush is saying.
Here's what
G. Bush is saying.
Yeah.
What he's been killing the receivers coach for saying. I like my room.
No, actually,
I like my talent.
Actually,
you just said it.
Actually, by the way, hold on. Before I came up with the term "gentleman's punt," I told you about receivers 3 years ago. I told you about linemen 2 years ago when people saying Jed Wills was okay. Now he's out of the league. Who was that guy? I got you because I told you before. I got the Duke of knee-jerk because I told you he didn't have no receivers. And you wanted Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Is inactive.
Last thing on this before we move on. If you asked every owner in the league right now, would you rather have Kevin Stefanski in the Broncos roster or the Browns roster and Sean Payton? Do you think anybody would pick the Browns roster and Sean Payton?
Be honest now.
You asking me should
those are your choices? Those are your only choices.
Would any of the GMs make the decision that you
or GM?
You're saying
nobody.
If you went to every GM in the NFL and said, "Here are your choices. You can have Kevin Stefanski as your head coach and the Broncos roster, or you can have the Browns roster and Sean Payton as your head coach." You think anybody would take Payton in the Browns roster?
Well, he is.
Yeah, I think some people would take that.
So? Okay. Hey, listen.
It might not be a bunch, but some people would take that.
Fair enough.
The Browns have the 32nd best roster in the league, and the Broncos
32nd best offense. They don't have the 32nd best roster.
All right, so 26th best.
So,
at the end we'll find out at the end with our draft order. Last year we were number 2.
But the point is, the Broncos have a top 10 roster in the league.
Yes,
they probably
they have the
number 5
defense
defense
and the 5th defense.
I guess it also depends how good you think Bo Nix is. That's part of it, but still, in the end,
I mean,
that does have to factor into the equation. But here's what I know definitively: he's better than anything we have.
Tom Brady said something, and I thought he was spot on. He said, we rank players all the time. We rank them all the time. And we say, oh, this guy's a top 10 quarterback. He's coming out number 1. We rank them all the time. He said, but we don't understand. This has a lot to do with who's on your roster and how guys perform. It's who's your play caller and who's the head coach. We don't rank head coaches 1 through 32. He said, what if you're a guy that you're a quarterback? Tom Brady said it. I didn't say it. Mm-hmm. He said, what if you're a quarterback and you got the 32nd worst play caller and the 29th worst head coach? You don't think that plays a role in the way you play? So what I'm saying is we could talk about the rosters.
If you ask me, would I rather have Sean Payton and the Broncos roster or Kevin Stefanski in the Broncos roster? I'm going to tell you Sean Payton.
And here's another way to ask it.
Yeah.
When was the last time in any sport
a
bad team won a championship? I'm not saying not the best team. I'm saying a bad team. I don't remember it ever happening.
No.
Ever. No. Bad teams don't win championships. No. I've seen some coaches that have won championships that I didn't think were great coaches. They won.
Yeah.
They won in spite of the coach because their talent was so great. I don't think Brian Billick was a great football coach. He had great talent on defense.
And that doesn't mean coaches don't matter.
No, it doesn't.
Right?
It doesn't. But sometimes your talent is so good. Again, it's the horse carrying the jockey to the winner's circle, and the jockey can make a little bit of difference during the ride. It's the same thing in football. The team is the horse, the coach is the jockey. The jockey can absolutely win it for you, and he can lose it for you, but you're not winning it on a dead horse.
Ed Orgeron is probably not the best college football coach of all time, right?
No, he's not.
Okay, but he's got a natty.
He's got it because he had so much freaking talent that he couldn't mess it up.
But
They won in spite of the
Gene
coach.
Chizik has a natty.
Again, they won in spite of the coach.
Can't, got Cam.
But I've never seen a bad team win a championship.
I will say this, though. Ed Orgeron is not a great X's and O's guy, but you know what counts? He recruits his ass off.
Yeah,
Oh, that's great. Yeah, give me Ed as a recruiter any day.
He got the talent.
I will give you that.
He got the talent.
And you know what? In college, this is different because in college, you can make a difference that way. Like in college, you can go get whoever you want to get.
Well, not as much
in
anymore.
the NFL. No, not well.
Yeah.
Well, you got a bag.
Pockets.
Right.
You got the
And
bag.
so my point is, in college, success. Like I'm impressed. Don't take this the wrong way.
Yeah,
I'm a Buckeye through and through. I'm impressed with what the Buckeyes have done. But in college, you have so many inherent advantages.
Oh, yeah.
Tradition, facilities, now budget. In college, you can't just go get, or in the NFL, you can't just, I want this guy and 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 this guy. Bring them all in, let's win. You can't do that in the NFL because the structure of the league is set up so everyone's on a 5 or a 10-year talent cycle. We want you to be good, then we want you to be bad, then we want you to be good. And some teams defy that in both ways. The Steelers somehow stay at the top end of the talent cycle. The Packers somehow stay at the top end. The Chiefs, the Patriots, some teams stay at the bottom end of the talent cycle. The Browns, the Jets, the Jags, the Panthers, the Saints. We can't get out of our funk.
Some teams take good picks and pick bad players. And some teams have lower picks.
Yeah.
And take good players.
Yeah,
the Browns have had high picks. I mean, good picks, meaning high picks. Every year. When those bad organizations continue to take bad players, that's why they're there.
Well,
but good organizations like the Chiefs or like the Patriots,
the Ravens,
or the
look at
Steelers,
the players the Ravens draft.
I mean,
but
think about all the good players, those
the Browns
starters
made it
they
even
have.
more difficult on themselves when they said for a 3-year stretch, we're not going to pick at the top of the draft, and we're not going to pick 2 in the 3rd round and 1 in the 4th round. They gave those picks away. So, yes, they have misused their draft currency in a horrible way the last 6 years, but they also gave away the most bars of gold during that time.
Yeah, and
like, how are you going to be good then?
And the misusing the draft currency is much longer than this current regime.
Yeah.
It goes back
Unfortunately,
a while.
yeah.
It goes back.
Well, that was spirited, guys.
Yeah.
Before we move on, just 2 things to update. Last 30-game record for the Browns, they're 9-21. We said 5-25. They're 9-21.
Wow, I don't
Because it goes back 30 games, goes back to the Joe Flacco December where they won 4 or 5. So that
I'm going back to, I think what I was thinking of, and maybe
you're
it's only
thinking of
5
last
and 20.
season and this team.
The 2 seasons together, because we were 3-14 and now we're 2-6.
Yep, just
so
wanted
that's
to
5 and 20.
Just wanted to
It's
clarify
5
that.
and
But you know what? To G's point, that's trash.
Including the
acceptable.
playoffs, they've lost 22 of the last 27 games.
And G, I know you were alone in the panel in terms of arguing for Stefanski. The chat agrees with you 68% to 32%.
I'm not
say
surprised
it's
by that.
A coaching issue, not a lack of roster issue.
Shout out to the cult. Yeah, no, I'm playing.
It is a